co-host.
Great. So good evening, everybody. My talk tonight, well, first of all, I'm Mary Helen Fine, and I'm one of Mountain Stream's community Dharma leaders. And I am part of the Auburn Sangha, but I love coming up when Monday nights meet in person. This group meets in Nevada City at our center, and hopefully we'll be doing that again soon. And my talk tonight is on engaged Buddhism, an expression of interconnectedness. And that's a phrase from Thich Nhat Hanh. And I'll be talking about him and some other people who have emphasized engaged Buddhism. So traditionally, get back to speaker view here. Okay. Traditionally, Buddhism was seen as involving a withdrawal from the world and from worldliness. The idea that the meditator, in order to be successful in meditation, must be secluded from everyone and everything else, must be inwardly focused. The Buddha taught that, but that's not all he taught. He taught the formal practice of meditation, but he also taught that we need to practice and follow core Dharma teachings in all parts of our lives. So that includes in our relationships, in our work life, in the actions that we take out in the world, in how we respond to suffering, and in our efforts to bring about positive social change. Many of you probably know about a very famous article that was published by Bhikkhu Bodhi. Bhikkhu Bodhi is one of the probably just two primary translators of the Buddha's suttas. He's also an esteemed monk. He lives in New York, New Jersey area, a Dharma teacher, and the founder of Buddhist Global Relief. So what happened was back in 2007, Lion's Roar, the primary Buddhist magazine, published an article by Bhikkhu Bodhi entitled A Challenge to Buddhists. He talked about listening to the news each day and how it confirmed for him the Buddha's first great teaching, that the world is grounded in suffering, and that the suffering springs not so much from nature, earthquakes, hurricanes, although some does, but much more often from greed or hatred or delusion that rages in the human heart. Bhikkhu Bodhi said that Buddhism in the year 2007 was not addressing the real suffering of real human beings, and that Buddhists did not really appreciate the Buddha's teaching, one of the three basic characteristics, that life is grounded in suffering. And he said that engaged Buddhism, those who practice engaged Buddhism, were an exception, but so far it had not been brought into the central teachings in the West. He said that our inward subjective experiences, sometimes we have these beautiful experience of the ideals of love and peace, but Bhikkhu Bodhi said they too rarely manifest in rolling up our sleeves and helping others. I'll read you a quote from that article. The special challenge facing Buddhism in our age is to stand up as an advocate for justice in the world, a voice of conscience for those victims of social, economic, and political injustice who cannot stand up and speak for themselves. He said, this is a deeply moral watershed moment in modern Buddhism. He said he believed Buddhism must take this direction if we're going to share the Buddha's mission to have compassion for humanity. Within weeks, Bhikkhu Bodhi had thousands of dollars in donations on his desk. He hadn't even asked for them. He found among his many students talented people with whom he formed a group called Buddhist Global Relief. I've been a volunteer for them for about 8 years now, and I just resigned because that's what I needed to do. I'm 79 and I can't do everything anymore, but I have loved working with them. The first year, BGR, Buddhist Global Relief, had one project and a $10,000 budget. This year, 1922, we had 50 projects and $1 million for the first time. So let me just show you their website. I think if you don't know about it, I think it's good for everyone to know about it. So share screen, and there it is. So I think you can see that, BuddhistGlobalRelief.org. And this is Bhikkhu Bodhi and some people who are enrolled in one of our programs. I'll just show you a little bit about our projects. And the 4 areas that Buddhist Global Relief focuses on are, I was on the website team, so I've been very active in building this website. Food assistance. Started out, Buddhist Global Relief was concerned about hunger being the primary problem in the world. And still, of those 50 programs, probably more than half of them are for hunger relief. And if you click on any one of these, you can see all the programs all over the world. Bangladesh, hill farming, Bangladesh, Cambodia, just they're in alphabetical order, but there's just dozens of them. So going back, the second area is education, children's education. Women's empowerment is the third area that they focus on, and sustainable agriculture. Just to give you one of the best examples, I think, of one of their projects is that, in Bangkok, there's a very, very large sex trade. And people who are starving bring their 9-year-old girls and sell them into the sex trade. Buddhist Global Relief has found a way to locate these parents, to intercept them, and to offer them the same amount of money to keep the girl in school for her career. I think that's a beautiful program, and that's just one example of an inspiring program that they do. So I just wanted to share that. It's a little advertisement, but I think it's a good one. So this is an example of engaged Buddhism. And Bhikkhu Bodhi did not invent engaged Buddhism. The term itself was coined by Thich Nhat Hanh in the context of the Vietnam War and the suffering that he saw during that war. His group went all the way back to the 1950s, and they were talking about engaged Buddhism then. During the war, they saw, the monastics saw so much suffering I'll just read you a quote from his book, Peace in Every Step. He wrote this in 1991. When I was in Vietnam, so many of our villages were being bombed. Along with my monastic brothers and sisters, I had to decide what to do. Should we continue to practice in our monasteries, or should we leave the meditation halls in order to help the people who were suffering under the bombs? After careful reflection, we decided to do both, to go out and help people, and to do so in mindfulness. We called it engaged Buddhism. Mindfulness must be engaged. Once there is seeing, there must be acting. We must be aware of the real problems in the world. Then, with mindfulness, we will know what to do and what not to do to be of help. I have just a couple of quotes here. Many of you have probably sat retreats with Joanna Macy, esteemed teacher and environmentalist. And this is from her book, also 1991, World as Lover, World as Self. Vitality of Buddhism today is most clearly reflected in the way it is being brought to bear on social, economic, political, and environmental issues. The gate of the Dharma does not close behind us to secure us in a cloistered existence, aloof from the turbulence and suffering of samsara, so much as it leads us out into a life of risk for the sake of all beings. As many Dharma brothers and sisters discovered today, the world is our cloister. That's a beautiful, beautiful sentence. And finally, my last quote, Aung San Suu Kyi, in her book, Freedom from Fear. If you're feeling helpless, help someone. So Buddhism changed dramatically with Thich Nhat Hanh and with Bhikkhu Bodhi's challenge to include and emphasize engagement. The seeds for this are in traditional Buddhism. The Buddha taught the precepts in a certain way that implies social interaction. He doesn't just say, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. He says, and I will read you the precept, let him not destroy life, nor cause others to destroy life, and also not approve of others' killing. Let him not cause to steal, nor approve of others' stealing. So these precepts are framed within a social context, the actions of others and what we approve of, and not approving of actions that violate the precepts. So I think that's interesting. Of course, we have the very great teaching from the Dhammapada. Hatred never ceases by hatred, and by love alone is healed. This is the ancient and eternal law. The basic insight of this teaching underlies the whole movement of nonviolence identified with Gandhi and Martin Luther King. In Buddhism, we have the idea of a bodhisattva of compassion, Kuan Yin, Avalokiteshvara. And I don't know if you're familiar with the pictures. I think the pictures of Kuan Yin say 1,000 words. So I just have 3 little pictures of her that I think of her as her, but when you read about it, sometimes it's a he. But to me, it's her. So let's just look. I'll share my screen again and show you these pictures. So this is a picture of Kuan Yin, and you've probably seen these Buddhas with many arms, but she has 1,000 arms, and in the palm of each hand, you can see an eye. What does that mean? The fact that she has these 1,000 arms helps her to be active. It allows her to reach out and help stop suffering. But the symbolism of the eye in the palm of her hand, that's what allows her to see the need and to see the suffering. So this is just a beautiful symbol of empathy, of receptive empathy. That's such an important part of compassion. I'll show you a couple other pictures, and I think you've seen this kind of statue now. You understand maybe more clearly what all those arms are about. And finally, this is a beautiful one. And it's kind of combining Kuan Yin and the Buddha, the symbolism together. Aren't they beautiful? So this is how the tradition in Buddhism works with its engagement. For us as lay people, as citizens, we give service, we engage culturally, socially, politically, environmentally. Every part of our life can be a place of practice with compassionate action to transform suffering as a central part of who we are. So often, Buddhist practice is not applied to our families, to our workplace, to our community. We want to be very wary of developing this kind of split personality where we're Buddhists here on Monday night, but on Tuesday morning we're just in a big rush and we don't have time for that stuff. So we want to take the practice with us all the time. and be creative in how we bring our practice to these other realms. Innovative. Our world on the cushion and off the cushion, these two worlds, they need to match. Here's an interesting question. Who are we responsible for? When do we know we're responsible? What really determines responsibility for another? You know, I think it's such a simple answer when I thought about this, but I think if it's nearby and you see, then you're responsible. Whenever we see suffering, we have the responsibility. When suffering is here and now, compassion naturally arises. I mean, just think, you're walking down the street in a busy city and someone in front of you falls. Because you're 3 feet away, you're responsible. You're involved. And your heart will feel for them, and you probably run to them and, oh, can I help you? I'm so sorry. Even if you never met them, even if they're very different from you, in many ways it doesn't matter, because your Buddha nature is aroused when you see this suffering. You know, all the major religions emphasize compassion. Is there anything special or specific about Buddhist compassion? I think the answer is no. I think we don't act compassionately because we're Buddhists. We act compassionately because we're human beings and we care. We're sensitive to what a situation calls for. We feel for other human beings because we're all human beings, not because we're Buddhist. So there's so much suffering in the world, and we can't address all of it. What's most important for us to focus on? Sometimes, you know, a broad focus like world hunger is so big that we can't even, you know, imagine it. And it removes us from the kind of here and now awareness that we want to maintain. That's why the Buddhist Global Relief website had so many pictures of children and people, so you can see real people who are suffering. So because that's how our heart goes out, person to person. You know, what does Buddhism say about the larger issues? I mean, if you see a homeless person on the street, maybe you'll give them a dollar or a Cliff Bar or something. I have Cliff Bars in my car now. I think that's a good thing to carry around. I'm out of them. I don't want to tell a lie. I have to go get some more. I had Cliff Bars in my car, and I will have some more soon. So, but just think of a homeless person, you know, and the destitute people on our streets. And think about the big picture. How do we relate to the big questions? We don't want them to distract us from the person, from the here and the now, from the experience of helping someone, the just this experience of helping someone face to face. But what about society's issues? We can't just ignore them in the larger sense. So doesn't Buddhism traditionally withdraw at this point? Doesn't it say, that's the way things are, that's samsara, it's always been that way, it will always be that way, there's nothing you can do about it, go back to your cave, don't get involved. You can't change the world. But maybe, you know, this is not adequate today. Maybe our times call for something different. Traditional Buddhism, you know, reflects centuries of development in Asia, generally under kings and emperors and maharajas and absolute rulers. And maybe it was necessary for a spiritual life for a person to withdraw in that kind of a situation. But today, we live in a modern democracy, and we have widely held respect for human rights. It's still imperfect, but it's there. So, even though the Buddha's teachings were intended for people very different from us, from a different culture, basic principles are the same. Today's problems are pressing. The low-tech Iron Age world of the Buddha, people might die in a famine, there was hunger, there was war, but there weren't weapons of mass destruction. There wasn't global warming. The actions of a leader did not affect the entire human race and the biosphere we live in. How can we disregard these things if we want to practice non-harming? We can't just concentrate on our own liberation and ignore our responsibility to the world. Our enlightenment is the world's enlightenment. Non-dualism tells us we're part of this world. The world needs all the help it can get. So our spiritual practice and our social engagement need each other. Social engagement can be exhausting, stressful, we get burnout, but spiritual practice can be an antidote and can refresh us. Conversely, without spiritual practice, we don't really see the basic problem because we don't really feel the compassion. Interesting question. How do we not hate the opposition? This has been such a trial for so many people lately as the forces of fundamentalism grow around the planet, and especially in our culture, especially in the United States. So how do we not hate those who disagree with us? Because, maybe socially they're reprehensible, but they're still human beings. And we don't want to stand there and be in hatred. So I think that we have to find, the Buddha said, I do not contend with any person. This contention is what we have to watch out for. We don't want to walk around with contention in our heart. So I think that we can look at the person that we disagree with, and we can bring some understanding and compassion to this person. And people recoil at that suggestion. I'm not having compassion for that crumb bum. But just because you have compassion for someone and you say, what kind of childhood did this person have? Can you imagine what his family, what demanded of him, what the values were, how he grew up, what he struggles with today? That doesn't mean that you condone their actions. People get confused. Oh, if I have compassion for him, that means that I'm just, wishy-washy and I don't have any judgment and I'm going along with whatever they say. That's not so. You can have compassion for someone and still not condone their actions and still see that their actions are causing suffering and not approve of them. Just wanted to talk about that a little bit because that's hard for a lot of people to bring compassion to people they disagree with. So Thich Nhat Hanh says a religious community should take a clear stand against injustice and oppression and strive to change the situation without engaging in partisan politics and conflicts. So I have kind of one last point I want to make, and then we can have a discussion. The Buddha pointed out that we all experience pain. We all get sick. We all lose people we love, and we all face death. Often we react to these things with greed, hatred, and delusion, and that creates our suffering. Our practice, our Buddhist practice, is not to get rid of the pain, but to transform our reactivity and experience the pain without the suffering, to make a distinction there that the pain is the first arrow. There's nothing we can do about it. But when we react, we bring in that second arrow, and that's when we suffer. So life will always have pain, but it doesn't have to have this second level of suffering. So what is our relationship to this basic suffering? I want to just point out that although we think of suffering, we know that greed causes suffering. I want that, I can't have it. We know that aversion causes suffering. I don't want that, but here it is. Push it away. But we don't think about how our delusional sense of self really is one of the most fundamental causes of our suffering. We believe that there is me, and then there's the world outside me. And the me inside is basically insecure because of this belief, because of this construction. The me inside wants to ground itself because it feels groundless. Why does the me inside feel groundless? Because it is groundless. There is no me inside. So we devote our lives to seeking a kind of symbolic reality for the self. What's a symbolic reality for the self? Fame, fortune, things, power, the worldly winds, gain, pleasure. That's me. Unfortunately, even though we can, work to shower ourselves with all these things, it doesn't help. The self is still feeling groundless. None of this makes the self real, and none of it fixes our mortality. And if we look closely, the reason I'm bringing this up is that our intractable social issues, homelessness, hunger, the environment, can be traced back to this delusional sense of self. Sometimes, often, it's a collective sense of self. My group, my race, my class, my gender, my political party, my nation, my religion does not agree with yours. My group is not the same as your group is a very short hop to my group is better than your group. And here we are in competition. Because just like the self, the group can never be secure. Unfortunately, many institutional religions reinforce this idea. So I want to make that very important point because I think we overlook the role of this delusional sense of self and how much damage it causes to the world. So my closing, one last closing point. Buddhism teaches that it's not very important to identify yourself as a Buddhist. Believing in Buddhist principles, fine, but applying the label to yourself doesn't get you anything. What matters is your practice and how you embody the principles and the precepts. What matters is how kind you are, how warm you are, how aware you are. So a bodhisattva does not vow to save all Buddhists. She vows to save all sentient beings. So let me read you a few lines from the Bodhisattva vow to close. Beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. Buddha's way is unsurpassable. I vow to become it. So thanks very much for your attention to that. Love to open this up to some discussion, hear what thoughts have come to you, or anything. You can just unmute yourself and talk.
When are you running for presidency? You have my vote.
Oh, who said that, Marie? No, she's muted.
Yeah, it was Marie.
Oh, it is you. Okay, hi. Oh, that's very sweet. I am president of Mountain Streams Board, but I just resigned, so that's the opposite of running. We need a new president if you're interested.
Hi, this is Kai. and this is the first time that I've joined your group. I'm zooming in from, actually not in New Mexico. It wanted an address, so I just put one of my addresses down, but I'm in Southern Oregon right
Can you
now.
speak up just a little, Kai?
I don't know.
Whatever you can do.
I'm kind of screaming into the speaker, so I don't know.
Well,
Anyway,
whatever. Go
I
ahead.
just want to say this is my first time joining you, and I'm just totally blown away by your talk. It was so encompassing of so many things and so many ideas and so many concepts, and I'll have to listen to it again 3 or 4 more times. But one of the things I wanted to make a point of, I have a Dharma buddy who, like most of us, came from a pretty heavy duty Christian upbringing, and now she's trying to understand the Dharma, and she's very bright. And one day she said to me, I think I understand the difference between what I learned as a Christian and being compassionate and what I've learned as a Buddhist. And so compassion is the same thing. What she came up with was, in Buddhism, they've actually given us tools to be more compassionate. I have something I can do to cultivate that. And that's our sitting practice and anything else we want to throw in. And I found that quite insightful because I hadn't really thought about it before. But having been raised Catholic, I knew I was supposed to be compassionate, but I didn't really know how to grow it. It was something that, I was just born compassionate, or if I just work really hard, I'll be compassionate. But in Buddhism, we have those tools. That's really cool. And I appreciate you pointing out everything you pointed out. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Kai, thank you so much. I think that's a wonderful point you've made. I think John Travis says, our teacher of the same name, you must be distantly related, interconnectedness and all that. Our teacher John says that you're not stuck with the heart that you're born with or that you grow up with. Our practice grows our heart and enhances our heart and opens our heart wider. I think that's just a kind of a different way of saying that Buddhism gives us tools, for being compassionate. I think it's so true. So thank you. And thank you for all your nice words.
Hey, Mary Helen, it's Marcia.
Hey, Marcia.
Hi. I've been watching a show called The Old Man. It's Jeff Bridges is the star of the show. It's kind of I don't know what it is, a kind of a thriller, and it's interesting. Anyway, he's a Buddhist, by the way, Jeff Bridges, and not to label him as such, but that's his practice. And in this movie, there's a scene, and he's talking to a woman in a next to him in an airplane, and he says for her to write her name on a napkin and then put it in the water, and it dissolves who you are. So you can let go of that person, but just like that, like it's just you're letting go of identity to the being. And this is totally out of context, but then she said, well, but that's not exactly true, because then you don't really lose who you are just through letting go. You're still something, you're still there. And he said something like, and I'm paraphrasing, he said something like, well, it's just that we're in a free fall, and we're always in a free fall. It's just that we're not prepared for it. And I thought that was such a Buddhist kind of like, the word free fall, and just how that brings up kind of that, like, ooh, that's kind of, but it's like we always are in free fall. So I just thought that was an interesting way to kind of think about the delusional mind of attachment to I and me. And I just have been, kind of humming that free fall word for the last couple of days, and just, I don't know, it somehow kind of scares me, but helps me to kind of come to grips with that process. So thank you for your talk tonight. I thought it was good.
Marcia, I think that's just a wonderful word because it challenges the the crazy search for stability. And it says, hey, there isn't any. We're just falling through space here. And I love that. It's a perfect phrase.
Unexpected places.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, hi, Meryl. I see you now. Hi. Anyway, so thank you. Oh,
Thank you, Marcia.
yeah.
Just what this is Tim, and
Tim.
just what Marcia was saying reminded me of something that I read from Trungpa, where he said something to the effect of kind of comparing spiritual practice is like jumping out of an airplane, and the bad news is you don't have a parachute. The good news is there's no ground.
Oh, that's great. It's the exact same idea. Just another great way of putting it. Thank you, Tim. We'll just take we have a few more minutes for discussion and then we'll start our wrap up. So anybody else want to share?
I just want to say that, what Marcia said and Tim just said. I'm pretty new to the mountain stream. And I've just been, in a real flight or fight state after quite a bit of trauma. And so listening to the free fall and there's no ground and there's no parachute. It's like, man, is that true? And what Marcia also mentioned was, there's fear in it, working with it. And then there's also some understanding. And so just interesting, I'm definitely open to, I'm trying not to shut down with all of that has went on, because I kind of froze after something I saw traumatic, and it froze me up so bad that it was hard to get moving again. So, it just gives me something to work with rather than retract. I think that's the best way to put it. So thank you for your talk. I came in a little bit late because I was walking a dog with my friend and I was trying to get here on time, but thank you so much, Mary. And nice to see some of the people in the Thursday night too. Thank you.
It's Meryl is your name?
It's Merle.
Meryl.
Yes.
So nice to meet you. I don't think I've
No, I have not met you, Mary. Thank you so much.
I'm so glad you're here, and I appreciate what you described and how you shared so much. Thank you very much. I in that free fall, somehow the practice gives a place, kind of a place to be within that for me, and it's the only thing in the universe that does. It's that, well, I guess it's just being with the free fall is what the place is. But it's got a certain something to it. So I don't have the right words, but well,
Maybe just helps to stay open instead of the fight or flight or the reactions.
exactly, Marie. It's exactly right. It helps to stay open rather than being so frightened you can't deal. Yeah.
Marianne, I want to also thank you, because I think you were very direct tonight about the social activism side, because I think it's come up in the past and there's been I guess mixed ideas, of passivism versus activism with Buddhism, and where does that all fit? And I like how direct you were tonight around that.
Thanks, Marie. Thanks. Well, I'm going to lead us in a short metta and then turn things over to Marcia for some closing business. So we'll just come into our meditative posture again, as before, kind of taking a breath and noticing our posture, having it be alert and at the same time relaxed. That kind of perfect balance, or as near to it as we can get. And just this time, breathing into the heart and feeling. I like to put my hand over my heart for this part because it helps me to, I really think that the Buddha nature is in your heart. I mean, I was saying that I guess probably it's really in the brain, but it sure feels like it's in the heart. And somebody told me, no. They're showing, today's research is showing that the heart is like a brain. So I think it really is right there. It feels located there. These our Buddha nature, our amazing human capacity that we have to be friendly, to be kind to one another and to ourselves, to be compassionate, to feel joy and joy for others, and to have that sense of equanimity that we can be with things as they are. And if free fall is what it is, we can be there with equanimity. Free fall doesn't have to be a panic attack. It can be an equanimous experience. Oh yeah, this is free fall. Okay, I'm ready. So those beautiful feelings in the heart, and let's just send them to ourselves. I'll use the traditional phrases. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I be healthy in my body and my mind. May I be safe from inner and outer harm. And may I wake up and be free. Now let's send this all to everyone here in our quote-unquote room. Let's send this to one another. May all of us here be happy. Just feeling that good wish for each other. May all of us here be peaceful. May we be healthy in our bodies and our minds. May we all be safe from inner and outer harm. May we all wake up, be free. Now let's expand this out the airwaves, out the internet, out cyberspace, out into the actual air and the planet and the continents and the oceans and the atmosphere. Just let this thing grow as big as it can get and just wrap it around the whole planet. This warmth, this kindness, this feeling for all the other people on the planet and beyond this planet, whatever beings there may be. Let's send them all these beautiful wishes from our heart. May all beings everywhere be happy. May they be peaceful. May they be healthy in their bodies and their minds. May they be safe from inner and outer harm. And the great wish, may all beings everywhere awaken and be free. Thank you all. Marcia, I turn it over to you.
If you want to stop the recording, please.
I will do that. Good idea.
Thank you.
Where the heck is record?
It's at the top.